What is going on, everybody? We are back once again with another edition of Wrestling Republic's daily broadcast. It is Thursday, November 16th, one day before my mother's birthday, and I will be your host, Clark Taylor, today. But shout out my mama. Happy early birthday, Eve. All love there. And more importantly than that, we're going to break down last night's AEW Dynamite that our good friend Carter and I decided last second. El Nino rainstorm. Watch this. Ubered all the way out there, all the way out to Riverside. Deep move. Big trip. If you don't know your California geography, that is not an easy move, especially with the amount of traffic we encountered. But we made it through all the way to the show and enjoyed every second of it. To be totally honest, it was as much fun as I've had at a wrestling show this year, and I've been to about 5. But let's get into last night's Dynamite and really break it down. And if we're going to do so, we're going to need a very objective panel, not one that just had the time of their life on a Wednesday night out in Riverside. We're going to need 2 that watched it and broke it down all the way. Let's start first out in Philadelphia. The head of opinions, Anthony Ricciardi. How are you on this fine Throwback Thursday afternoon?
It's been a really long week for me. So to talk about some wrestling is kind of a relief. So let's get into it.
Let's get after it. Absolutely, I'm with you. And also, not to go without mentioning, and speaking of mentioning, almost pulled the identical move to us without the rainstorm from the DMV for Monday Night Raw. That is from the DMV, our good friend Shad. How are you, man, on this fine Throwback Thursday?
We the ones. Hey, just to let y'all know, Wrestling Republic, we was at Monday Night Raw. We was at AEW Dynamite. We for all the promotions, man. But I'm good, brother. I'm blessed. I'm glad to be here with y'all. Let's get right into it. And by the way, happy birthday to Mama Taylor. Salute to you, man. Your son is okay. But you're better.
Absolutely. I love it. And she's in the comments and really appreciate it. Thank you, Shad, from my mom. Yeah, no, that's awesome. And love you, Mama. Always. Absolutely. Let's get right into the Like a Dragon Street fight, though. Let's talk about it. This is such a funny one to me because we thankfully did get there by then. I will admit we got there a little late to the show because of the traffic. It is an interesting situation on the freeways coming out of Orange County or LA last night. And I do think it might have affected the attendance in the arena because just even if you had tickets, it was a difficult trek to get there in general. We had the Like a Dragon Street fight. I did not mind the sponsorship in the least. The suits actually popped me in the moment. Now, of course, when you're there and you're in the arena in the suits and you have a laugh, right, that doesn't necessarily mean it was a great spot. But there has been some criticism over the ability to wrestle in the suits in general. Other than that, though, I was thoroughly entertained by this one. And don't get me wrong, I was sitting on the floor and I haven't actually had the chance to watch the tape back, which is a little bit frustrating, but not the end of the world. I did watch the first hour back of last night's show and enjoyed that as well. But let's get into the Like a Dragon Street fight. Big news also coming out of it. Kota Ibushi is officially All Elite. That's huge deal. At least in my eyes, only because of the name value as well as how does it possibly affect the New Japan AEW working relationship. Not totally sure, but let's really talk about that street fight. I will say, Paul White, the Big Show, in the crowd last night. The crowd, well, it's the Big Show. Me and Carter heard maybe 75 times. Maybe 70. I mean, which was hilarious. That deeply affected the match in my eyes in some way. But Anthony, I want to get your thoughts on this one. It was fun for what it was. And I don't think the sponsorship had any effect on it personally, but I wanted to get your thoughts on that part of it, as well as like how you felt about the finish.
Yeah, these are one of those things. We've been seeing them a lot in wrestling lately, these sponsorship matches. All the other ones for the most part, I don't think necessarily were very good. And I think this one followed the same trend, unfortunately. For at least for me from watching it. There were some moments that I enjoyed in the sense, Big Show or Paul White, whatever you want to call him, kind of putting Hobbs over by letting him slam him on the car, the next generation guy. But there were a lot of spots that I just didn't care for. I don't know how it came off in the arena, but watching it on TV, Ibushi on the bike with the pipe looked horrible. Like it looked really bad. Like he barely tapped these people with the pipe, and they were overselling, and the camera angles were just really bad. But what really annoyed me was Ibushi taking the tombstone spot from Fletcher on the apron into the pile of chairs. Number one, it's a dangerous move and really something I would have advised against, considering what we just saw what happened with Moxley a couple months ago. But what I didn't like was he takes that spot, and yet he gets up before Fletcher does and continues the match. Shouldn't that have taken Ibushi out of the match altogether? Shouldn't he have sold that? But he got up before Fletcher, who delivered the move. I didn't care for it. It was chaotic and it had its moments, but as a whole, I didn't like it.
I gotta admit, the spot specifically that you pointed out there is one that was really intriguing, and I'm glad you actually brought it up because it's fascinating to me in the arena. You mentioned, like, I don't know how it came across in the arena.
Mm-hmm.
We saw the spot and everything, right? But we were about 5 rows back on the floor, and it's a very flat floor.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually a minor league hockey arena at times, so
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of floor seats, and then it's not very elevated going up on the sides. Even though it's a gorgeous Toyota Arena is gorgeous arena, but we had awesome seats. You could see a lot of it, but because of everyone's standing up during that spot, it's blocked. Interesting tidbit to even elevate your point on this. The screens showed a lot of the big spots in this match. They did not show that one, which I found really, really interesting last night. Also, I don't think that in that arena that they use the big screen that often. So there were other spots throughout the show that, and this is no knock on AEW. I'm a huge AEW fan and I enjoyed all of last night. I had an absolute blast. But there were times where you look up and want to see something on the screen to see, like, because the angle didn't make sense from where your seat was.
Yeah.
And they either would or wouldn't show it. It was very hit or miss. And I don't know if there was an issue as far as in arena audio or video or something like that. Not audio, video or something like that. But it was odd, and they did not show that spot, and it didn't nearly get the pop that it sounded like actually when I saw the replay in the video afterwards. It didn't feel like that at the time.
You wonder in a situation like that because they have run the arena before. So it's not like it's the first time they've ran it, correct?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
you wonder if there was either a change in the arena's technology or somebody on the AEW side was different handling it, that there was an issue. I mean, I'm just spitballing here. But
possible because you have also the Dax Harwood botch as well on top of it. I will say, though, the weather was no joke. Yesterday in California, and Californians just aren't quite used to it. Like, it's one of those things where if it rains like that in Philadelphia, if it rains like that in the DMV, everyone's prepared in a way. And in California, it's just not the case. And I do think that deeply affected the turnout for the show because it was an adventure for me and Carter to get there in every sense of the word. It was one of those things where we were on the way there, like, geez, man, stay on the road. Like, it's slick as could be, and it's hot rain. So it's steaming, the vision's bad, and it's bumper to bumper. And you're like, okay, this is different. Once inside the arena, it was awesome, but I do think that affected the turnout. that's the other thing I'll say about it too, to your point about the arena audio visual issue. It's also not one that runs a lot of shows year to year. It's mostly a concert venue.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a completely different animal, I feel like, than professional wrestling, but could be a factor.
Well, you remember a couple of weeks ago when I went to my first AEW show, I said I thought there was like audio issues in the arena, and I didn't know whether or not it was Leah Coors or it was AEW. It's interesting that you kind of came across something different, but along the same lines.
100%. And with that though, Shad, I got to toss it to you, man. How did you feel about the main event last night? What did you think about the finish? Do you think there's any more steam in this Takeshita Omega Callis stuff, or is this really the blow off?
So it wasn't a very good match. I'll be blunt about it, but I enjoyed it because I expected to be stupid, over the top, and silly, and that's what it was. That's what you kind of do when you intertwine it with a gimmick match that has to do with a sponsorship. Granted, I will say this: I'm not super familiar with the game. I know that Takeshita cosplayed as a character. I believe Brian Cage was like a Streets of Rage character as well. They had all the props and whatnot. So I guess there was utilization to it. I'm not too familiar with the game that much, so I don't get a lot of it, but it seemed like just a regular, like, hardcore match. Like, no different than when the Brawling Brutes do those, like, pub matches. It's just a hardcore match with a bunch of props around the arena. I personally, and I know it's more so for the arena, and that's the chaos what AEW does, I thought they had a good opportunity to lay it out more of a cinematic match within the back where you kind of have stuff like in the streets and stuff. I would have liked that a little bit more to add more to the sponsorship, but that's to each its own. I thought the match there was a lot of weird spots that not the Takeshi, the Ibushi pile driver that wasn't good. It's very scary. And then, like Anthony said, the no selling was bad. The bike spot was bad. It was just a lot of chaos going on, but I appreciate it because I like a good chuckle out of it. This was the blow off match, I believe, right? I don't know what you do after that. I don't really want these guys to feud anymore. I know Jericho and Omega got the tag team match against the Bucks on Saturday, so they're gonna be tied to that. But I feel like it takes a little bit of seriousness out of the Callis family. I feel like there's such a strong faction. They have such beasts on their roster. Takeshita's a killer. Powerhouse Hobbs is that guy. You know, they added Brian Cage for the match, but Brian Cage, even with the embassy, he's a straight beast. And like just being intertwined with that match with all the silliness, it doesn't mesh good with their characters and what they're trying to do and whatnot. And that's kind of the one thing I didn't like. I don't think it's gonna harp them a lot. I feel like you can easily get them back in a good feud after that and build them back up, especially how good of a heel manager Don Callis is. But I didn't like it too much for them in regards to that. And I mean the suits look very uncomfortable for him, you know. But I will say the thing I did love is I love Big Show's spot on the car with Powerhouse Hobbs because I feel like that clip is going viral. Big Show, we know who he is. He's one of the biggest, most massive wrestlers that we've had in this sport. You really like add a lot of like boost to how big of a powerhouse Hobbs is. Like that makes him look so strong. Like you literally just tossed the Big Show into a like car through that spot. Like I feel like that was the most positive thing. As scary as it is, and I hope I know Big Show probably got his icy hot on his back today. You know, he got all the Bengay that he needs. You know, but he ain't young no more. I'll tell you that much. But overall, it was I'm thoroughly entertained by a lot. It was entertaining, but it wasn't a good match at all.
I agree with so much of what you said, and it's funny actually. Me and Carter debated trying to go look for where they potentially actually may have filmed that car spot. We're like, there's got to be a parking garage or something. Like, go check it out. But then we unfortunately ended up at Eureka across the street. Shout out. Ended up doing appetizers and hanging out, and a few of the AEW stars filtered in as well. So we we didn't quite have time to go check out the parking garage, but we did think about it. I'll say that much, because that spot was one of the best of the night. And we got a comment here from our good buddy Numero on Superfly. The Like a Dragon Street fight was fun. Also, would you have wanted Kenny and everyone walking in slow motion walk? I wouldn't have necessarily say I wanted it. I enjoyed the comedy from our seat where we were too, because we were on this side of the ring facing the stage.
Question.
Jericho and Big Show running down looked a little bit like Mutt and Jeff and the Blues Brothers combined. And I think that was the hardest I laughed and popped all night. Like, it was just hysterical. You had Jericho and Big Show in matching suits running down the ramp.
And it would be the two oldest members of the team being the ones in the suits.
Are y'all well versed in that video game?
I'm not.
Never played it in my life.
Okay. All right. Well, I don't feel alone on this podcast. So
I've never even heard of it until they did this thing.
Carter beat the one that this is like
the original one of it, right?
The one that Carter's beating that game.
I saw online Takeshita and matter of fact, let me pull the picture up for you. I'm not breaking any
no worries. No, check it out. Check it out. Check it out.
Takeshita wore this, right?
Yeah.
So that's the character. I believe the character's name is it's a Yakuza reference. I believe the character's name is Majima. But you know who else had a Majima cosplay? Who? Nobody is ready for Asuka.
No way. That's even actually.
Yeah, she had it a few months ago. I saw it online, so I thought that was a pretty cool reference. But yeah,
that is completely wild.
Cool stuff.
It is cool stuff. And honestly, I'm all for sponsorships as a revenue stream in professional wrestling. It's completely relevant, and it's huge. Think about like when we were kids, guys, growing up. And we're going to get into Throwback Thursday later, because it is Throwback Thursday. But talk about a throwback. This is like what WWE got Stacker 2 at the time, which I guess is making a comeback now. But didn't that have ephedrine? Wasn't like the whole thing is illegal? Like, it was an illegal weight loss supplement, basically.
Yeah.
Like, that was the big sponsor in the 90s. Like, we've come a long way, guys. If you really think about it, we've got video games and legitimate corporations sponsoring our pro wrestling. Like, that's awesome. Shout out the wrestling community for that one, for sure. Also, we got one more comment here from Number One Superfly. I've only played one of them, which was Yakuza Like a Dragon from 2020. That's awesome. Was it good? I don't know, dude. I'm so bad at video games now. I'm like too old for them. I'm only good at Madden. That's about it. But that's where it ends. Let's talk about, though, something really fun. Let's talk about Orange Cassidy, Hook, and the Blackpool Combat Club. This was Orange Cassidy figured it out in a way, or maybe he didn't. Maybe people figured Orange Cassidy out. I can't figure out. Speaking of figuring things out, I can't figure out which it is. But either way, it's been figured out as a whole, because Orange Cassidy's electric every time he steps in the ring. And I was always excited to see him. I'm excited to see Hook. I loved BCC. It was fun for what it was. We had John Moxley. Anthony, I'm tossing it to you. How did you like this one? What do you think about the future for these two, one a team and then the other being, I guess, kind of two single stars paired together, headed into the pay-per-view that is Full Gear?
Yeah, as a whole, this was one of those ones where I thought it was a pretty decent opener. In answer to your question about Orange, I think in a lot of ways, I think he kind of figured it out in the sense of he's kind of gotten away from the taps and kicks, which was always an issue for me, because it took me out of it when he was a serious competitor that he would do these, because it's not realistic. Yes, we know it's staged, but at the same point, it can't be insulting. So I thought this was a decent opener. I thought this had a problem that I think the women's match had the same problem, in that it was kind of predictable who was going to take the pinfall. It was either going to be Yuta or Hook, because they're the only two not involved in any stories right now, as far as with the pay-per-view. For me, I would have personally, instead of having Hook take the loss, I would have had Moxley somehow pull out the win on Orange, because then you could build it up of going, I've beaten you once for the title, I've beaten you again, I'm going to beat you a third time again for the title this Saturday. Like, I would have done something like that, or had Orange squeak out the win, and you could have went, next time it'll be for the title, or you could have done something with it. Having Hook get beat for it, I don't really see that adding anything to it. And, the announcer's going, well, that's the FTW champion. I'm like, that title doesn't really mean anything. In the grand scheme of things, it was a title that was created by Taz because he didn't have the ECW world title. There's no real prestige to that title. So making that statement as if Hook is undefeated when we literally know he just won it back from Jack Perry a few months ago, for me, it didn't have a dramatic effect that, Excalibur yelling, it's the FTW champion that lost. Didn't mean anything to me.
I hear you. The FTW championship thing is difficult because it's, there's a lot of nostalgia tied to it. But like, to your point, it's always also been an illegitimate title. It's one of those.
It's been around longer in AEW than I think it was in ECW. It's had more title changes.
It actually
in AEW than ECW.
Ironically, by the way, did they elevate the FTW title in some way, or I guess in some way?
It's probably higher than the TNT for at one point. At least it changed hands less times in a shorter amount of time.
It's true. We got a few comments here in the comment section. We got Matt Williams with why does Shad kind of look like Jacob Fatu?
I am him, Oos.
And
I'm
then
Jacob Fatu, Oos.
Matt Williams, I got to let you know, he
Bloodline.
is Jacob Fatu.
Matter of fact, by the way, we do have an interview with Jacob Fatu on the YouTube channel.
Check it out right on the channel.
See if it's me or not. You never know.
It's good. It might be Shad. It might be Jacob Fatu. And we also have a hi from WWE_26. What is going on, WWE_26? Good to see you. Thank you for tuning in.
Thank you for coming to an AEW show. You're breaking the forbidden door.
He's breaking the forbidden door. He just broke it, in fact. I would go as far as saying that. But let's get into the next topic. Let's talk about the Hangman promo. Hangman and Swerve. What in the world? Is this not the best storyline in pro wrestling? If it isn't, I don't know who's not watching it.
It is. I stand corrected. I said Trick and Mello a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
This is surpassed it by miles and miles.
Like, not the Nana interaction. Like, are you kidding me? It is two elite high-level pro wrestlers operating at their absolute finest, and titles don't matter. Titles don't matter. It's my favorite thing about it. Not for a belt. Doesn't matter. None of that. But I need to see Hangman and Swerve one-on-one in the ring to an extent that I haven't in a long time with other rivalries. This is one of those. I have to see them lock up. I have to see how this goes down. How they trade offense, and both guys' movesets are so deep. It's one of those things where I can't quantify just how excited I am for this rivalry. And last night's promo, Hangman is so serious. My favorite thing in the world about it, and it took a world of discipline. Swerve didn't say a word.
They answered the three questions. Who are these guys? Why are they fighting? And why should I care? That's what you need for a successful story in wrestling. That's why this is compelling storytelling, because you answered those three questions. It wasn't there the first time. It's there now.
It was absolute perfection. I couldn't agree more. They answered all of them. But what I actually do like about it is they built it in a way where we knew the answers, but they presented them in a way where you didn't feel like you were being spoon-fed the answers on this one. This was, and Swerve in every promo where he is talking has been nothing short of excellent. This entire storyline. This was Hangman's turn to do you went to my house, this, that, and the other. And he dialed it in to another level. Swerve's facial expressions. Prince Nana. What more can you ask for than Prince Nana's role in last night's segment? I mean, he was outstanding.
Great.
He's so good. I loved it. Shad, how did you feel about the segment? How stoked are you for this match? It's just going to be an absolute slugfest.
Oh man, I mean, if you were to tell me where my money is going to on Saturday and why I'm gonna buy the pay-per-view, I'm pointing right at this match on that card. Um, this is what AEW has been missing, and this is what they've been thriving for. They need compelling box office storylines like this, and this is the beauty of professional wrestling, where storytelling is key. And I give the most credit week by week to Swerve Strickland. I feel that he's one of the most dominant, like just pure evil geniuses and heels in this sport. And it also ties to how an incredible professional wrestler he is as well. He looks like money. Like everything is on point with him. The whole Prince Nana as his manager and adding a different flair to it and the humorous aspect to that, but also, you can play off of that humor when they did the whole raid at his house. Yesterday was Adam Hangman Page's night. This guy is the most underrated superstar in AEW. And when you talk about people who need to be in the conversation for Mount Rushmore of AEW superstars, I feel like it's disrespectful if you don't add his name to it at this point. Because there have been 2 stories and 2 feuds with him that have felt so real and very box office esque, movie esque, where he's so vulnerable and he brings his real life to the front of a storyline in professional wrestling. Like last night was personal. You felt raw emotion coming out of his voice. You raided his house. You endangered the livelihood of his kid being around his child. He said, "I'm not calling the police. I'm not doing any of that. I'm ending you with my bare hands." Like he made you feel that he's coming for blood on Saturday, and the style of match that they have with a Texas death match, it's gonna be one that like it has you so hyped because it's such a brutal match within itself. But you add that element to where it's so personal, and these 2 guys have so much disdain and hate towards each other. How could you not be excited for it? That was, in my mind, the biggest like positive on the show. I believe my man David Sheldon gave it a 5 stars. Like, if you haven't watched it, you need to go ahead and rewatch it on YouTube. I've watched it a few times today. Like, it gave me goosebumps. Like, like he told Prince Nana, like, I love the aspect where he's like, they said they obviously can't hit each other. Someone's gonna get suspended, saying that I can't beat you up, but I can beat you up. You were in my house too. And he getting his hands on Prince Nana. And also, obviously, the weed line saying that you look like you work with someone who buys weed from teenagers. I'm going to steal your weed. Like, all of it was good, man. I think Hangman Adam Page did a phenomenal job. And yeah, man, I loved everything about it.
I don't think I'll ever get over you buy weed from a high school kid in the parking lot.
It
was like, that was electric. It was so good. And Nana, the cell from Nana on the face. Oh,
yeah.
Oh, this is delightful. Nothing short of delightful, to say the very least,
Sure.
about that one. And monster shout out David Sheldon. It was a 5-star promo. I couldn't agree more. Let's talk about, speaking of not 5 stars though, but former 5 stars, tons of stars, more bang for your buck. The Bucks, the hometown kids from just across the street over in Rancho Cucamonga, against Penta El Cerro Miedo. Also, not quite across the street, but across the border. Total local in the Southern California wrestling scene. Commander as well. Fun matchup in my eyes. I enjoyed it personally, but there were some complaints about some miscommunications in the ring and some spot fests. And then our own Ben Allison, shout out Ben Allison, total legend. But he did mention, why did they turn the Bucks heel in their hometown? And that's something that I kind of agree with, but at the same time, they didn't get the hometown response. This wasn't, for lack of a better comparison, this wasn't CM Punk in Chicago. This wasn't Randy Orton in St. Louis. This wasn't MJF in Queens, New York. The crowd was not, there was no hometown feel for the Bucks anyway. So personally, I will say, I don't mind the heel turn. It was coming anyway. And for them to do it in their hometown, to me, actually makes sense, given that the crowd wasn't cheering them like they were the hometown heroes you'd ever expect. Anthony, I got to ask you about it. What'd you think about the match? Spot fest, sure. Miscommunications, not great, but entertaining. And then how did you feel about the turn?
As a whole, the turn, they've been teasing it. So it wasn't like it came out of left field that they just turned. It was pretty much implied that they were turning heel, that was the direction they were going with this. When I look at Bucks matches, I don't look at them the same way I look at other matches where they're storytelling. The Bucks are spot fest matches. You're not going to get, Shawn Michaels storytelling. You're just going to get the high flying stuff. That's what you're going to get. So that's what I expected in this, and that's exactly what you got. And with high risk, there's, sometimes there's good high reward, and sometimes there's crashes and burns. When you do this type of style, sometimes you hit something and you go, oh, wow. And other times you're like, ooh, that was rough. And that's what happens every time when you have a match like this with the Bucks. And it's usually the Lucha Brothers, but in this time it was Penta and Commander. Same difference. This suffered, I think, from the same thing that the OC Hook and Combat Club, and even the upcoming Sky Blue and Red Velvet match that Shad's going to cover next. It has this problem where these other people are not involved in storylines. So the Bucks were going to win. Like, it was too telegraphed at that point that, it's like, okay, they're going to win. It's their hometown too. They're playing heels. It was what it was. There was nothing in that match that I would consider a match of the year contender or anything like that. It was a fun match, but nothing that would be memorable a week from now.
I agree. And I think other than the turn itself, right? It was kind of classic Bucks, what you see, but the turn itself, I guess it would be slightly memorable in a sense, only because we're going to see him work as heels, right?
Well, the thing was it even a fully heel turn? Because didn't Matt Jackson sign or give a sneaker to a kid on the way out?
Ironically, I did not actually see that spot. I was up in the restrooms.
I don't know if it's possible. A total.
I read about that this morning. Did that happen? I don't know. I was there and don't know. Is the funny.
How much of a heel are you? Going, hate me, but here you can have my shoe, and I'll like that. Like, you can't go full heel.
To be honest, I feel like they're heels to the aspect of this match on Saturday, but like, I kind of understand their point while they're mad.
Yeah.
Well, you get it, but at the same point, it's like when MJF's a heel, it wasn't like he was going to take off his designer shoes and sign them and give them to a kid. No, he would pretend like he's going to give it to the kid and go, "No, I'm not giving this to you." Like that. Like, that's what you would do. You wouldn't give the kid a shoe. Like,
Good point.
True.
Good point.
Okay, speaking of kicks, we're in Southern California this week with AEW, and we're covering Southern California stuff. And maybe my favorite commentary line I've ever heard when I watched it on the replay. Actually, I just saw the clip. Sky Blue versus Red Velvet. This is red versus blue in LA. I died for it. Like Crips and Bloods. Once again, it just cracked me up. Like that line.
It was wild.
It was a wild line when I saw it. I was like, that is funny.
Well, you took me through a tour through that area.
Yeah, you have red versus blue. Honestly, I really did enjoy this match. And this was about when me and Carter kind of got there and got to see and get into the show. And we're just settling in. But I really enjoyed the match. Sky Blue and Red Velvet, both immensely talented. I really want Red Velvet to explain the knee brace. I think that knee injury was a huge deal for someone that's charismatic and talented. And look, Jade Cargill was lost, right, to WWE when I was at my lowest with this knee injury that put me out for so long. My best friend left me. Right? Something as simple as that, just to take that next step. Oh, that would blow me away. That to me is the route. Despite that, this match was awesome. I believe in both talents immensely. I think they're both awesome. Where we go from here, I'm not entirely sure. That is my only issue. Shad, what are your thoughts on this match?
I liked it. I thought it was a very solid match between both women. Red Velvet, man. This is someone I feel like we don't give her flowers for what she's kind of accomplished in the AEW women's division. She played a very pivotal role throughout the entire reign of Jade Cargill. She was the initial storyline with Jade Cargill. She was in a, big time match with Shaquille O'Neal and Cody Rhodes in Jade's first match. And she's a person that catches a lot of flack online for, having botches here and there, but she's underrated to me, and I think she looked very clean yesterday. I thought her and Sky Blue both had a very good match. I like them kind of getting Red Velvet back into the picture, coming back from injury. And yeah, I do agree with you. I feel like it would be cool to kind of tell that story, or give her a storyline after the pay-per-view and kind of get her back in the mix within the women's division. It's definitely a great add-on back from getting her an injury. Sky Blue, there is something about Sky Blue that has a lot of potential for this AEW women's division. Um, when she first came in, they didn't give her much of a character. They kind of just let her go out there, wrestle, and always solid wrestler, belt for belt. I feel this storyline with the TBS title, tied with Julia Hart, tied with Chris Statlander, has benefited her a lot. And there's just like an added allure to what she's doing throughout all of this. Like she's playing this whole like, is she aligning with Julia? Is she becoming kind of possessed from the mist? Or is she just possessed in a different manner? Like there's so much question marks. Is she gonna align with Stat? Is she gonna align with Julia? We got that on Saturday. Or is she gonna be the one who comes up as the top victor on Saturday? Like I feel like you can make a case for any three women going into Saturday, and a lot of that is to benefit how well they've booked this storyline for the TBS women's title. So all in all, I liked it. I think they had a very solid match. They let them wrestle at 8:30. They gave them time. These are steps to progress that we're doing with AEW. Next step, let's get 2 women's matches on Wednesday. All right, Tony, listen to your boy.
I am with you on that. That is spot on, and I love that they gave him time. And I'm sorry, I did not mean to do that little early camera cut there, but
Oh, you good?
but seriously, no, I couldn't agree more. And I think Sky Blue is so talented. You can't really make it up. And Chicago guy, of course, I'm a huge Sky Blue fan. Come on. But I do agree with you on
Scooby Doo gear too.
Yes, but I do agree with you on the amount of question marks since the missed incident. That's a lot of like S's and C's. That was a tough one, guys. But no, but I agree 100%. Let's move on though to our AEW World Champion Maxwell Jacob Friedman. I've seen this dude live a number of times, and this is probably the biggest compliment I'll ever give to a professional wrestler. It really doesn't get old no matter the scenario. It doesn't get old. He's that dang good. Like every single time he goes, just hand him a mic. Let him talk and whatever. It's pure entertainment in every facet of the word. It's pure entertainment. as usual, he delivered in my eyes. In my eyes, he delivered last night. Anthony, I'm going to start with you. Do you agree? I mean, Max is so good on the mic, and last night was just so fun as usual.
Other than Cody Rhodes, I've probably written more about MJF than probably anybody else. Clark, you could probably confirm that.
That is true.
You know, Max is one of the all-time. He's going to be a GOAT. When everything is said and done, he is one of the best people on the mic. And the true greats, The Rock, Roddy Piper, even Austin at times, Triple H, these people are really good on the mic. And they don't get old listening to them cut promos. And that's the same thing with MJF. If you would have told me at the beginning of the year that he would come close to the end of the year and be a babyface, I probably wouldn't have believed you, because he's such an easy to hate heel. Like he's one of the best. He felt to me in a lot of ways almost like the opposite of Steamboat, where Steamboat was a face his entire career. I'm like, MJF could be a heel his entire career, and he's beloved because you love to hate him. The only issue that I had with any of this is the whole Devil storyline. Now, I've written about this, and I'm sure people want to kill me for the piece that I wrote speculating it could have been Tony Khan, which, by the way, on a side note, you will appreciate this. One of our opinion writers, Archie, sent me messages. Apparently, my piece is getting traction because he's seeing all over Twitter, which I am not on, that apparently this crazy theory that I threw out there of going, what if Tony Khan's behind all of it? And it's like an Adam Cole led group, and this is all a plot to screw over Max. Apparently it's gaining traction because apparently he says, until you posted that, I saw none of this speculation. You post that piece, it's all over Twitter. And I'm like, that's great. Jay White, the promo, I felt that Jay White hasn't really emphasized enough that he thinks Max is the devil. Like, he got jumped, but they really haven't relayed that from Jay White going, you're a liar, I know you're the devil, till last night. But it's like, this has been weeks, and he really hasn't mentioned it enough. And I really feel like he should have leaned more into it. I don't think it's Max. It's probably going to be somebody like Jungle Boy, or hopefully Adam Cole. Adam Cole will be the ideal one. Like I put in my piece, I want Adam Cole, the Bucks, the Kingdom, and O'Reilly and Strong, his three stables all together in a new undisputed elite, or whatever you want to call it. That's where I think the smart play is, that the screw over Max, and you can kind of run with that, especially if Max stays and he can feud with them.
I love that idea. And if you're going to hit like a pseudo NWO of AEW storyline, how about build it that strong? Makes a ton of sense. Shad, I got to ask you, how do you feel about it as far as MJF and the future, including the Devil storyline?
I mean, I briefly spoke about it yesterday on our preview show. I feel like everything is falling in place, and it's aligning to me thinking it is Adam Cole. I don't even think we're gonna see we'll see hints of the devil on Saturday, but I don't think there's gonna be a big, reveal for it. Just because I feel like you got a lot of meat on the bone. You can get another storyline tied to the devil and incorporate it in the same way and build more traction to it to whenever Adam Cole is fully healthy. But I think one thing that happened was, and that was kind of telling, was the phone call between Roddy and Cole. Like, as soon as Roddy was bringing up the devil, you can kind of see Adam Cole just being like, all right. Like, he kind of just wanted to get off the phone really quickly, right? So I really do think it is going to be Adam Cole, and I think this is one of those, like, good ways to get them to have that match against each other, but also save time within allowing him to heal from an unfortunate injury. In regards to the promo between him and obviously what was going on with the Bullet Club Gold, it was solid. It's always good. Max he's good at this, man. Like, he's one of the top guys on the mic, and Jay White is really coming into his own in the storyline between them. I like that they're giving him the tall task of feuding with MJF. I feel like they have, differences upon how obviously their characters are and whatnot, but there is a lot of similarities of just the type of heel mastermind, kind of like being a ringleader and a whatnot of a group and stuff. Like I feel like there is a lot of commonalities between both of these guys, and I'm definitely excited for the match on Saturday, and I'm excited to see what unravels.
I am too, 100%. We got a comment here too from our good friend Numero One Superfly, which is if Tony Khan was the devil, he'd pull a Vince McMahon and be like, "It's me, MJF. It was me all along." In parentheses, the biggest troll of all time. That would be gold. That was delightful when that comment came in. I want you to know, Numero One.
That's funny.
Too funny.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I like the idea of him being CK being the devil. I feel that would come so left field that nobody would expect it.
That's what I said. Whoever it is needs to shock the system, and that's not a pun for
Oh no! It was.
But it needs to be somebody huge. It can't be Jungle Boy.
Yeah, maybe they could just shock the system.
I don't want it to be Jungle Boy. I feel like that's gonna fall very flat.
Amazing.
That was a good one.
Listen, I knew that was going to be that would kick. But that's what it needs to be. It needs to be somebody that you wouldn't expect. And the way I laid it out, not to because I know we got time, but the way I laid it out was essentially Tony Khan is plotting to screw over Max because Max wants to hold him up for money in 24. Yep. And you can kind of play it up of, everything would happen with Punk. And really, Tony's getting behind somebody that, like we're going to cover in the throwback. He's getting behind somebody who he wants to put the belt on and get it off of Max on the way out. And I think Adam Cole would be the guy.
Question. So you and I like that idea a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's extend this, right? Let's not maybe Adam Cole is part of it. What if we extend it to December and it's one of those guys that you can eventually sign, right? Is that what you put on the other thing?
Well, I put it as World's End, and I would have MJF defend the title against the Devil. He doesn't know who the Devil is. During the match, I said a last Devil standing match. And I'd have random Devils running in. One of them will ultimately screw Max over. That one would be Tony Khan. Hit him in the back of the head with a diamond ring or brass knucks. Or I think diamond ring, brass knucks is what I went with.
I like that.
And Adam Cole could be the guy. Now, if Max doesn't sign, that's fine. You got a heel thing. You can get somebody like Hangman to go after them or Omega or whatever. You could build something. If Max stays, then you could do the Austin McMahon type thing where he's fighting against the Machine. That was that'd
be dope.
I still think it's CM Punk, but I love the idea. I'm kidding. I love you guys.
I'd like to, if he was to just hire an outside person and it's around December time, the idea of maybe signing like Mustafa Ali is his kind of henchman.
Yeah, but you know the crowd was not going to respond if Mustafa's the Devil.
The greatest story in wrestling history is if the Punker and Tony worked us. It is. If we all got worked, that is unfathomable. I've been worked since I was like 12. It doesn't I love the product.
I don't
right?
believe we were.
And it's the same way I watch television shows.
No,
you know what I mean? Like it's not that I know what's coming, but there's a level of predictability, creatively speaking.
Yes.
Thank you. Creatively speaking, we've kind of done everything.
Realistically, as much as we want to know everything, there's a reason why we love the Royal Rumble, because we don't know who's coming out. We don't know who's winning.
Oh yeah, the surprise element is the best thing in the world.
As much as we want to know, we want to be surprised too. So that's the gist of it. So, do we want to get into throwback?
That is exactly
it's crazy. The throwback topic is a little aligned to what we're talking about.
Even better. Let's talk about well before Hollywood. Well before Hollywood, guys. When The Rock went corporate.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Corporate Rock Survivor Series 98. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone out there in America. I do know that we have a huge UK audience, and sorry about Thanksgiving, but happy Turkey Day to all the American fans out there. Let's talk about Survivor Series 98, though, and The Rock going corporate. I mean, we loved it. In hindsight, at least in my eyes. It's one of those things that I look at like the Austin heel turn at 17, and I'm like,
I hated that.
Why didn't they just do the they had Corporate Rock like
the Austin heel turn at 17 is the infamous jumping the shark. That was the worst decision, but we'll get to that when we do a throwback on that.
100%. Anthony,
Yes.
I'm tossing it straight to you though. Please break this topic down for us on this fine Thursday afternoon.
Okay, so the WWF Championship was vacated. So for the first time ever at Survivor Series, they were doing a one-night tournament known as the Deadly Game tournament. That was the big tagline. Leading up to it, it looked like Vince was rigging the tournament to give the title to Mankind. Because at that time, Mankind was buddying up with Vince. Vince gave him the Hardcore Championship. It looked like that was where it was going. The tournament literally opened with Mankind taking on Dwayne Gill, who would eventually become Gilberg, for anybody that wanted to know. So it was being cushioned for that. So then you get into the finals, and it's The Rock and Mankind. Now, it was expected, okay, they're going to screw over The Rock. The Rock's the people's champion. Makes sense. They already screwed over Austin earlier in the night, so it would make sense. But they did the 97 Survivor Series finish from the year prior. The Rock put Mankind in the sharpshooter. Vince demanded the bell be rung. The Rock became the new WWF champion, and the people's champion was dead. Long live the corporate champion. That's how they phrased it. I believe The Rock even mentioned in promos, you were chanting, "Die, Rocky, die." I didn't forget about that. This is one of those things when you look back on in this business, this was such a cornerstone moment because the rise of the corporation and Austin's feud with McMahon continuing now against the corporation and against The Rock. And in the midst of that, and I really think the sacrifices that Mick Foley made in the Hell in a Cell match, literally only 5 months prior, really got Foley into this spot. All the sacrifice, I mean, he shortened his probably his quality of life, shortened his career, but I don't think Foley would have been in this position battling for the WWF Championship if it wasn't for the sacrifices he made in the Hell in a Cell. And, in the midst before we get to Mania of Austin Rock 1, which I still think is the superior one, we got Mankind feuding with The Rock, trading titles back and forth. But it all started from the Survivor Series. Like, this was a really special time. Like, if you're looking at peak Attitude Era, the Austin McMahon thing, the corporation, this is really peak time. Like, this was can't miss every Raw, every pay-per-view. This was as cinematic as you can get, much like the Bloodline is today. It was must-see. And the Corporate Rock was one of the great turns, and Austin was the perfect foil for that you would get at eventually at WrestleMania 15.
Exactly. It did work out at that time so perfectly, and it's so funny because it is, and we're obviously not covering WrestleMania 17, but it's just bizarre that they got this so right and played out a scenario with Austin on the other side. It just made no sense on arguably the greatest Mania of all time in my eyes. Probably the best top to bottom entertainment value wise.
It's
Mania ever.
I agree with you. Mania 17 is probably the greatest of all time. It only gets soured by that finish of the Austin
literally
match. Because it made no sense. It literally made no sense why Austin would turn heel. And they
It
never answered that, but I know this is not what we're talking about, but you know.
No, I couldn't agree more. Like, it's the singular blip on the radar. Let's get back to Corporate Rock. Shad, your memories of Corporate Rock turning. I know you were young too, so was I, but not young enough to not remember it. We
5
all
years
died.
old, baby.
Let's go.
Yeah, no, I mean I definitely remember it as a kid, but I rewatched a bit of it today, and obviously you gotta just talk about the just the idea of it, right? Like it's one of those things where the '90s, late '90s era of the McMahon family and how Vince is just that evil owner, and being able to lure the Rock and making the Corporate Rock was just out of this world, and it added a completely different wrinkle to it. And The Rock was just so good. Like he played that role for it so well. I mean, if we're talking about from '97, was it '98? It was '98, right?
98. Yeah.
'98.
Survivor Series 98.
Yeah, the
End of
match.
98.
Yeah, the match between him and Mankind, and just the ending of that, getting The Rock the title, and then just the Raw after that, with that promo with all three of them and The Rock, like you said, basically telling off the fans and aligning with Vince, and it's very masterful, and it definitely was a creation of a very strong, great storyline throughout the year until, like y'all said, into the Mania with him and Austin. And I mean that's just The Rock is just really one of those guys, man. He's one of those people that it must be in that in the bloodline where he's able to play so many different roles so well. But he's one of a kind for that. Like he can play different roles and reinvent himself, but still remaining the same type of character and being able to just be quick witted as a heel, being real able to attack you in the aspect, right, with his words to his opponents, fans, and whatnot, and also align that with the babyface. I think is good. And I mean, as much as I'm not a huge Vince McMahon fan as a person and whatnot, like we can't deny the fact that like the McMahons were such a good, like Vince is one of the best heels of all time in professional wrestling.
No
Like
doubt about that.
you can't deny it. So
He's the GOAT as far as
he's the
Heels.
he might be the go heel. Like I and it probably bleeds into him as a person or whatnot. I'm not here to discuss that, but he's really good at that. And like just the like you talk about the initial thing with him and Austin coming out, like when they're cutting into the TV screen and him walking in and Vince worrying and whatnot, like all of it was so great, man. So yeah, it definitely was a monumental moment in pro wrestling history.
There's no doubt about that, and I think you brought up some. Oh, sorry. I think you brought up some great points about The Rock and his ability to play multiple characters, and I think that's one of those things. Like we talk about, like the it factor. Rock didn't necessarily always feel like he had it, and that's where it's funny to me. We get critical of these up and coming stars, whether no matter which division they're in, no matter where they're coming from, on their way out of the gates, if they stumble a few times, right? Let's not forget about Rocky Maivia, right? Rock hit a gravy train as soon as he clicked in his head.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. This isn't working. But
Patience is a virtue.
It is, and that level of charisma is super hard to quantify.
He
and
found
really even harder to find right elsewhere. Sorry, Anthony, go ahead.
Yeah, no. He found the niche and he found the confidence. He found that character, not the forced one that they kind of threw on him of the third generation, the Rocky Maivia. But once he found that, referring to himself in the third person, like Deion Sanders.
Yep.
Once he found that niche and they kind of let him off and let him do his thing, it worked. Same thing happened with Roman. Kept forcing it. Yes. They let Roman be the tough, the tribal chief. That's when it connected.
Perfect example.
Isn't the line you're playing yourself but turned up? That's when you're at your peak in this business, whether it was Austin, whoever. Yeah.
Austin, for that matter, too.
Yeah.
Speaking of great examples, right? All of those three. And we've seen it time and time again where once you actually do find that spot, can it work? And there's not one way to skin a cat, right? You know, Goldberg has his place in history forever, without question. That's a different way to build somebody. But we got to be patient on some of these men and women that are performing for us every week on Raw, NXT, Dynamite, SmackDown, Impact, or TNA Impact now.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you know what I mean? Collision.
Mhm.
Some of these early 20s kids, I'll call them, we got to give some patience, because you see things like this with The Rock, and it does exist. There is a way to find your what
Your
works
groove.
and find your way
groove.
to stardom. Yeah, find your
Yeah.
groove. The
I
Emperor's
mean,
New Groove.
That's the only problem in today's day and age. People don't have the patience, which I think applies a lot more pressure on the younger talent to find that groove faster than they would maybe 10 years ago, for
I
example.
could not agree more, and I think it's a positive too because of the extra eyeballs. But with that does bring us to the end of Throwback Thursday. Thank you so much, Anthony. Thank you so much, Shad. You guys are the best. If you haven't already liked and subscribed and you're still watching, please do. It helps us out immensely. Go check out the Instagram. We're having fun all the time. Next week is actually Thanksgiving on Thursday, so please look out. We may do a different time. We may do something funky. We may do something different. Other than that, though, we're here every day. And please cruise back if you have the time in your schedule. And thank you for tuning in. We will talk to everybody tomorrow.